Hey up and welcome to the strategy sessions. My name is Andy Jarvis and it's a little bit different today. I'm here at Ulster Bank's headquarters in Belfast to record a live version of the strategy sessions. Give us a wave. There you go. I've got a cheer from a rabble, a motley crew who've come to watch the recording. Thank you very much for coming. I've also got two guests today, not one. So I'm joined today by Charmaine McConville. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
And I'm also joined by David Levin. Hello.
Hello there.
Right, so why are we here and what are we doing? It's Black History Month, and as you know, this is episode 2 in the Black History Month mini-series. You know that because you listened to Miracle's episode last week. Of course you did. But we're here raising awareness, really, and discussing different perspectives of marketing, of business, and of life. The theme this month is reclaiming narratives. And over the last couple of months across the summer, there's been some interesting stuff happened, let's put it that way, where maybe the narrative of migration and ethnic minorities in the UK and in Ireland has been owned by people that, well, it's just not us. So this is a little attempt by me and by the guests on the strategy sessions to just start reclaiming the narratives and telling our stories of what it's like to be in business here and what it's like living here as well. So it's just a normal episode as well. Well, is it normal? How can it be normal when you've got two fantastic guests? But I'm going to shut up and I'm going to throw questions at them now, just as we do in every other episode, just live, and anything could go wrong. So here, wish me luck. Right, let's get on with the first question. David, what one thing do you wish you'd have known 10 years ago?
Well, I'm gonna do two.
Two? Oh, I'm greedy. Bloody hell.
I'm a rebel
What a start.
coming straight out the blocks, not answering the question that you did. I'm going to say I wish I'd known to appreciate every minute of having a meal before you have children. I don't know how many parents are in the audience, but just like, I mean, I love my children dearly, but I think now just like being able to sit and have a meal and then getting more sleep, I probably would have gone for that.
So what I heard there was you love your children dearly, but you also love chips more.
Absolutely.
That's what I heard. Yeah, that's
I love
okay.
burgers.
Yeah.
And then maybe slightly more seriously, I think I wish I'd known that being different isn't the problem that it felt like years ago. So growing up, for me in Leeds with different coloured parents and looking different to most other people that I grew up around, it was quite confusing, and often I felt compelled to try and look like the other people. And generally I confuse people, I think, because I'm kind of, I'm mixed race, but I'm quite light skinned, but I often get cute. I mean, my mate's mum still thinks I'm Mexican. No one really knows what I am. Everyone comes speak to me in Arabic on holiday. I can't speak Arabic. But I think as life has gone on and as my career has gone on, I've realised actually that difference tends to be a bit of a superpower, and it has worked quite well for me when I've learned to understand that.
Absolutely. Now, we will get into that as well later, because you grew up in Leeds, which is the second best city in West Yorkshire after Bradford, where I grew up.
Definitely.
And there's certainly some interesting experiences. We are of a similar vintage as well. I think I might have a maybe VAT on top from where you are. But certainly growing up in the 80s as mixed race was an interesting time and an interesting thing.
For sure.
Okay. And Charmaine, what one thing do you wish you'd have known 10 years ago?
Being a second-generation immigrant, I think I'm still surprised that 10 years later, even though I've been here about a little over 20 years, I'm still the only one in the village. Having moved from England to Scotland and now to Northern Ireland, I've been in so many spaces, especially in the corporate world, where I've been the only black person in the room or in the entire building. And it's still the case today with everywhere else I have worked. And I've worked for quite a few companies, to be honest. And I wish I wasn't. Yeah. That's what I wish I knew, that I haven't come from a country that was quite diverse and gone to schools that were mixed and everything else in between. That would be the same up here.
I'm not going to name names or companies or people or anything, but I worked with somebody a few years ago who was close to retirement. He was sort of mid to late 50s, and we got along famously. He was a cricket fan. I'm a cricket fan. But over a coffee one day, he said to me, he was like, do you know, we were talking about something or other. I can't really remember what it was. And he said, you're the first black person I've ever worked with. And then we'd done 30-some years working in Belfast
Yeah.
and never worked with a black person before, which, growing up in Bradford, I find, mind-blowing entirely. But
Yeah.
it's the nature of the beast around here, isn't it? Although it is changing, which I think is part of the reason we're talking about what we're talking about
No, it is
today.
changing. I mean, when I first moved to Scotland from England, I was around 2005. I could count on one hand how many black people were in Paisley, because I was at the University of Paisley at the time. And then I moved, and then slowly but surely, Scotland became quite diverse and quite open, and they had a massive campaign on inclusion, which I think helped a lot. And then, so I found more people who were like me, and it was more comfortable, but it took a while. And then 9 years ago, moved to Northern Ireland, I start all over again.
Brilliant. Well, look, while you're talking, tell us a little bit more. Introduce yourself to the room. Obviously, we know your name, but we've not talked about Plug and Move. Tell people about your company and just give us a sort of couple of minute overview of the company and where you are, what you're hoping to do.
So Plug and Move is the brainchild of my sister. She got stuck in the wrong place at the wrong time without a battery in her phone. So her frustration basically bore our business. We are a company that provides rentable portable charging stations in high footfall areas. We're currently lucky enough to be in Castle Court and recently moved into Victoria Square. So if you do see a little station there,
I would say they're lucky to have you there. It's not the other way around. They're lucky to have you in their premises. Okay.
Thank
so
you.
it came out of a problem from your sister,
Yes.
and then here you
So
are.
she was traveling from Dublin to England, and she got stuck. Bought a battery pack and wanted to charge it on the plane. Got onto the plane, opened the box, the battery pack wasn't charged. So she ended up landing without any charge in her phone. Thankfully, you know how it is. 15 years ago, everybody knew everyone's number by head. Mm-hmm. Now nobody knows anybody's number, and we rely on our phones for absolutely everything, tickets, cards.
I love that your sister took the rage, because I know how I'd be feeling if that was me. The effing and jeffing on that plane would have been horrific. And I love that she's taken that rage and actually done something with it. I'd have just whinged about it, probably started a podcast about it, but that's...
No, she was very, very annoyed, and she went on and on about it, and then she's like, you know what? Let's fix it. And I'm like, that's kind of a big ask. And she's like, no, it'll be fine. Let's just do this. So she did all the research. And I'm sitting there, and I was looking at what she had put together, looking at the numbers, and I'm like, that could work. And then it built from that could work to why wouldn't it work? And then
here we
literally
are.
6 months later, here we are.
Wow. So you're in full startup mode. What's your role in the business?
So I basically do, being a person who is a finance background.
Yeah. I mean, it's a startup,
and being
so you're
a startup,
doing everything, obviously.
We're doing everything from, talking to clients, networking, doing,
live
articles,
podcast
live podcasts, putting the business name out there, joining at the accelerator program through Ulster Bank, just trying to get ourselves out there. So you have to wear quite a lot of hats, and none of them fit at the moment.
Yeah. The joys of the startup world. So we'll come back to that in a moment. David, what do you do? I always feel like royalty asking that question. What do you do?
What do I do? Well, for sort of the past 10 years, I've been running a social media agency in London. I'll go back before that. Before that, I've been a writer for about 20 years. Started at MTV, used to write there, then wrote for lots of terrible magazines. Then started writing for YouTubers back when they were sort of on the rise. And then, I won't tell the whole story because it would take up your full podcast, but set up a Twitter account for a pub in East London for a joke that it got very popular in the early days of Twitter, when Twitter was more like kind of TikTok now on the rise.
Yeah. Before it was a cesspit.
Yeah, sure. I made it a cesspit. But no, and then I started getting asked to tweet for lots of brands and a few celebrities and stuff, and then accidentally became the UK's first professional tweeter. And then when Twitter got me to speak at one of their events about being a tweeter, I met a guy in the audience, a comedian and actor called David Schneider, and me and him set up an agency in London doing what I was doing as a freelancer, and then we started doing the other platforms as well. Did that for 10 years, and then we got acquired by a bigger agency, and then me and my Irish then girlfriend, now wife, moved over here with our then one kid, now two kids, and now we have babysitters in the garden.
Life comes at you fast, eh?
There's my whole life story.
So very briefly, yes or no question, does being a professional tweeter make you a twat? Is that what
I'm not going to dignify that with a response.
It's okay, it's okay. Yes, and I didn't ask Ulster Bank if we were allowed to swear in their premises, but such is life security on the way. Sorry, no, we'll move on from that. And the pub, just briefly, it was the Dolphin, wasn't it? Which,
yes.
If you are listening in London, you will know the Dolphin. East London's finest establishment.
Well, definitely not finest. It's kind of like the Iron Apple of East London. It's kind of like it's a pub that has this bizarre 5 a.m. late license where hipsters go and drink Jaeger bombs till 5 in the morning, and has anyone else been to the Dolphin? There's hands going up in the room, right? Okay.
It's quite a place. Somebody said to me, "Oh, we'll get a taxi from here to the Dolphin," and I kind of Googled it and was like, "It's a pub. We're going to get a 30 quid taxi across London to go to a pub that'll shut at midnight." And I left at 5 a.m. The sun was shining, the birds were singing. I questioned all my life choices at that point. But it was incredible. I think I might have even done karaoke at one point there.
Yeah, no, you probably did. Yeah, no, it's not like a normal pub, but it genuinely changed my life, that place, because I did it as a bit of a joke. And that is one thing I think when I get asked about kind of any sort of work-related advice, which is often, well, in my experience anyway, I think that it's the things that you don't spend too much time thinking about that. If I did not set out to set up an agency or even really to move into social media, but I sort of did this thing for fun.
Careers advisors are stabbing dolls of you right now listening to this. It's like, oh, don't plan it, just do it.
No, I know, but I was lucky. But it is quite an interesting place. Although that account, unfortunately, because it got a bit of a cult following, I keep getting asked about it. Recently got this part of Twitter becoming the cesspit that it is, it got hacked by a Chinese pharmaceutical company, and I can't get it back. So now the Dolphin Pub account and all its followers is just tweeting about drugs in Chinese.
Well, yeah, but that is basically you just on an affiliate scheme with that Chinese account, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just my side hustle.
Yeah. Excellent. So now you are sort of freelance and doing similar, maybe not Twitter, but still doing writing for...
I'm still mainly sort of writing for brands, but then as sort of happened by accident again, I now find myself, my main job is running the social media for, I'm speaking slowly because I'm trying to remember what I'm allowed to say. I'm running the social media for a famous tennis star from a part of
the world
part of the world that isn't this one.
Yes. Well, I mean,
I think I'm actually allowed to talk. I don't know why I'm being so cagey about it. It's just, they've sort of said I can talk about it.
So both listeners of the podcast will know who you're talking about now. So,
yes. But anyway, that is my main freelance job, and then I still do bits of writing for brands and stuff.
Excellent stuff. Excellent. So you are now based in Hollywood?
Yes.
Hollywood County Down.
Shout out to the Hollywood crew.
Not Hollywood, Los Angeles. And
one L.
You, rather bizarrely, have a favourite petrol station.
Yeah, I don't think it's bizarre. If anyone in the room who has been to Hollywood will appreciate the Maxol Garage on, I think its full name is Maxol Kinniger. Yeah, I don't want to pronounce it wrong. Yeah, the one on Belfast Road is more than any. It's the, like maybe it's just because I'm from Leeds and have spent most of my life in London. We would not like anywhere that is a petrol station or anything related to petrol station in London or Leeds is somewhere you don't want to be. Whereas this, it's like the best bits of Waitrose mixed with it's an experience.
Somebody was doing well in London.
I could spend 3 hours in that Maxwell garage, and I often do.
So when my little one was young, I used to take her to Pets at Home and told her I'd taken her to the zoo because it was cheaper. Is that what you do with your kids? You just take them to the garage at Kinniger and tell them it's a day out?
Yeah, no, our 5-year-old does look like it in there. It's just, it's got everything. It's got like, rather than just most shops that I know have sort of a bread section, this has a whole bread aisle. You can spend an hour on the bread aisle, and they know you in there and they listen. Yeah, it's a whole new experience. I love it.
And I'll put a link in the show notes if somebody reminds me later. But David wrote a love letter to this Maxol and Kinniger on LinkedIn, so there'll be a link in the show notes
to add me on LinkedIn. I'm relatively new. We were talking about LinkedIn before, and I am late to the LinkedIn party, but I am now obsessed with it.
It's the new Twitter. It is the new Twitter.
Yeah, no, it's really, I think from a writer's perspective as well, I'm finding that it's just like there's so much good stuff on there. When I was on there years and years ago, when I first sort of had a little dabble on it, it was mainly just people showing off about themselves, and I found it like quite a boring place. So I didn't really look at it for
That's
ages.
all I do.
Yeah. But now there's people showing off, but in a quite entertaining way. No, it's great. But I know there's some LinkedIn gurus in the audience, so I won't embarrass myself talking about it.
Well, we'll come back to social media shortly as well. But Charmaine, do you have a favourite garage, petrol station, or? I mean, don't worry, it's not weird if you don't.
No.
I think that makes you perfectly normal.
I'll take you to that one.
Well, there is one just down the Omo Road. It's quite nice.
Yeah.
They have an attendant, so you never have to leave your car.
Do you know, actually,
That's
Has it got a deep fried, has it got a chicken pick and mix thing?
No, it's just a garage.
If you know, you know.
So there's a magazine published in Northern Ireland, actually in Hollywood, called Forecourt and Convenience Store Monthly. If anybody from there is watching, we are available for sponsorship. But yeah, I mean, this maybe is the answer. So, right, we're not talking about petrol stations and garages. We're talking about startups. That's what it is. So, is this your first startup that you're involved in?
For me specifically, yes.
How's that journey so far? 6 months in?
Yeah, well, what month are we in? October, so 10 months in?
10 months in?
We started in January, and you know when you start a business and you're thinking, oh, this is a brilliant idea, everyone's going to jump onto it, everybody's going to get excited about it with you, everybody's going to buy into you. Yeah, we quickly learned it's the complete opposite. And then on top of that, because our product is shipped into the country, with everything else that's going on around the world politically, the goods were supposed to arrive within 35 days. They took 6 months. Ooh. So yeah, that slowed us down significantly. But it was a blessing in disguise in two ways, because whilst we didn't have any clue what we were doing, it gave us a chance to regroup, figure out how we were going to promote it and to, spread the word. So that gave us enough time to get our business plan organized, get out funding and things like that. So it's hard. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. But when you wake up thinking, oh yeah, let's start a business, you think, oh, I'm going to be off all day, sitting in the sun, especially because this summer wasn't actually too bad. Sitting in the sun, drinking your mimosas while everybody else is doing the red race. It's not even close. I'm up at 2 a.m. trying to talk to our suppliers, and half the time there's a language barrier, so you can never find, it takes forever just to get a simple request through. So, yeah, quite tough.
Startups sound like hell a lot of the time, but there's got to be some plus points of doing it, surely, and not just the mimosas by the pool.
Well, yeah, no, I don't have to rush around. I don't have to join the rat race. That's about the only part that's exciting, because it's all hours of the day, every day, Monday through Sunday, and any other extra days you can add in there. It's like there's never enough days in the week, but there's also too many at the same time. It's a constant battle between work-life balance and trying to, be successful and, make money, and which is what everybody gets into business to do in the first place. Then when that doesn't happen, it's like, okay, so what are we going to do? We've just put on all our life savings into this thing, and it's not going anywhere fast. So it's okay.
There's always that thing as well when you start. It doesn't matter what sort of business it is. You always know someone who started something, maybe not exactly similar, but starts something at the same time. And 6 months down the line, you're looking at your bank balance going, right, well, I've got enough to last till the end of next week. Yes. And then you see them as they pull up in their Ferrari and go, it's great running a business, isn't it? And you're like, yeah, congratulations. But it can be really hard not to compare yourself with the journey that other people are on, can't it?
It's very difficult. I mean, even when I joined the accelerator program and I'm watching some of my some of the people in the cohort, getting contracts, doing talks, people are offering them work and things like that. You kind of go, so what am I doing wrong? Where's my turn?
Yeah. And it's hard, isn't it? And what's the phrase? Comparison is the thief of joy. But there's probably an end to that, which is, but it's still bloody hard to not do it. It's something like you're still always looking, going, oh, that's interesting.
I know.
But when you ran an agency in London, which is a hotbed of lots of agencies, and it doesn't matter how big you are and how well you're doing, there's always somebody else with double the number of people who've just won the Nike account or taken it off you or something like that. How did you manage to avoid that sort of longingly looking over somebody in Soho and going, how have they managed to do that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we avoided it because there was three of us that started it, all confusingly all called David, but the third one, he was more businessy and business minded, so he was probably thinking more like that. But me and David Schneider, we're both creative people, and neither of us really had ever sort of planned to start an agency and hadn't thought too much about it. So we were more just excited about the work. And I mean, obviously, then you start thinking more like that later on. But also, I think it helped that when we started the agency, there weren't that many other social agencies. Now you can't move for them in London and over here, but we were a little bit early in terms of particularly ones that were specialists, and we were hiring like like people who were doing what I was doing, so tweeters and Snapchatters and Instagrammers and stuff. But yeah, I think we were just so excited about just sort of doing it, and then it was growing organically, and we were, people were wanting to come work for us, and it was getting bigger. And I think it was the comparison stuff more came later, particularly once you get into pitching, which is a whole sort of universe that I'd never sort of known about, and it's a tricky world.
Yep.
And by the nature of pitching, you have to compare yourself because you're up against other agencies and you see them on the way in and you want to like kick each other, and it's tricky. But no, generally I think I haven't been too bad for that. But as an individual, definitely what you're saying, instead of constantly looking what other people are doing, and like you just said there, why haven't I got that? Why is it? I think it's kind of part of getting older. Maybe I think when I sort of hit 40s, I was kind of someone said to me, kind of the great thing about 40s when you get to 40s is you give like about 20%. You care about things about 20% less or whatever, and I think that has been true for me, and that has helped the not comparing myself to other people so much. Or maybe I'm just more tired.
That comes up. You stop caring too much.
You've got other things are more pressing. And you get home and your kid doesn't care whether you've won the pitch or lost the pitch or whether they're just like, "Mommy, Daddy," And it's something really, I was going to say disarming. It's just really lovely, isn't it? And it's just like it really helps keep you grounded and keep you focused on what comes next. Did you have any other names in the running? If you were all called David?
Names for the agency.
Instead of that lot, was it like David Cubed or something like that?
3D. Yeah, we talked about a few. And in hindsight, I mean, sort of when we started, it was more other David's idea. That lot we thought was funny, but actually, just when you sort of signing into places, it's just always quite a practical nightmare. But 3D would have been better.
So, in your early days, you said it sort of grew organically, and people were coming to you because they just didn't. Well, nobody really knew. Early days of social media are a bit Wild West. Nobody knew what was going on. But as you started to grow and develop, what marketing activity worked for you to sort of help the business keep growing?
Another good question. So a lot, to be honest with you, when we were growing, a lot of it was word of mouth, really. We started out as a small agency being hired by the bigger agencies to kind of, a lot of them were good at winning big contracts. So they'll go, I'm just looking at my Red Bull because I'm tired. They'll win a big Red Bull contract, part of which was social media, but actually they didn't really know how to activate that stuff. Then they'd hire agencies like us sometimes kind of on the quiet. I think using social media itself, so we were starting to, actually I think even more than social media, doing talks. So that, again, was something I never planned to do. The first one I did was the one at Twitter's event, which I was so nervous, I was so terrified that I wasn't going to go on stage. And my girlfriend, now wife, and my flatmate gave me a glass of wine and said, you have to do it. It was like, because there's like hundreds of people. It was at the Tate Modern, and Twitter were like, you've got to do it. You're going to get so much work out of it. And I was so nervous. But then I did it, and then it's kind of, it became fractionally less nerve-wracking every time I did it. But as an agency, we were getting a lot of work out of doing that type of thing because we were going, and we found a good way to kind of get up there, talk about social media, show some examples of what we did without being too salesy, and that was enough to attract more work coming in. So talks was good. I suppose now, like I say, LinkedIn as a freelancer, I'm finding is invaluable. But I'm quite new to the party.
And what is it about LinkedIn that you're enjoying? The slightly longer form content as a writer?
I'm enjoying it partly because it plays to my, like, because I'm a writer and I love writing, and I think from what I know from LinkedIn, it's kind of, it helps if you can write content that people are interested in, or make content now. So it's very video focused as well. I genuinely learn a lot from it. I think it's kind of, that's how it seems to have evolved as a platform in terms of, yes, there are still lots of people saying, hey, I'm brilliant, but they're doing it in interesting ways, and a lot of people's stories and things and experiences that they're sharing on there. And yeah, I think it's a much more wholesome way to spend your time than on Twitter nowadays. Or I love Instagram, but that, if you talk about sort of comparing yourself, a friend of mine recently described it as digitized jealousy, which is very profound, but I really think it's true. Instagram, you're just constantly putting out the best version of yourself, which is maybe not so healthy.
As someone who posts 3 or 4 times a week on LinkedIn, finding new ways of saying I'm amazing is really quite difficult. But
just
I
write
manage.
about the Maxwell garages near you.
And then people love it, absolutely. So one last question before I come to you and start asking about your marketing, Charmaine. What's your view then on AI? And this is as someone who's just spent 2 days at a conference, and I thought, if I hear the letters AI again, I'm going to explode. But there's a button now on LinkedIn that just says, use AI to write this post.
Yeah.
So what's your view?
Really, really tough one to answer. And it is something I get asked about sometimes. It's tough for a few reasons. One, because I am definitely not qualified I don't know much about AI. I know I should spend more time getting into it. Most of the people I follow on LinkedIn are writers. And it seems to be a divide of, I'd say about 70% of the people I follow are writers slagging off AI and really terrified of it and it being a real negative thing. And then there's this 30% that are using it in smart ways and making a fortune out of that. And I'm neither, really. I'm kind of definitely not. I think it feels like I remember I'm just about old enough to remember, some of in the sort of the start of the .com boom, the way people sort of talked about some of that. I think it's crazy to be trying to fight against it, but it's definitely taken work from people sort of in my world, so it is tricky. I had an interesting experience because I know I've been making myself spend some time trying to learn it. I went on ChatGPT. I thought I would just give it a brief that I was given as a freelancer recently, writing for a car brand, and said, right, can you write 10 lines of copy for out-of-home sort of billboards, but also might be used on Instagram? Gave it the brief, and it came back within 10 seconds or 30 seconds, whatever it was. And of those 10 lines, 6 were terrible, unusable. 3 were not bad, but if I'd spent a few minutes, I could have tweaked them, which I think that's probably the area a lot of people are talking about. But the other line was my line that got signed off. And that was terrifying to me, but also quite interesting. And I need to chat to some people who know about AI to explain whether, I still don't know whether that's a line that, because it apparently could have been scraped from, because that by that point, the work had started going out. So it might have been just giving me my line. But the terrifying thing is, it might have just come up with my line that I thought was really clever and So I don't know. But it's a tough one. But I know it's something I'm planning to spend more time getting good at.
Well, a good place to start might be the last episode of the last season of the strategy sessions. Easy for me to say. Dave Burrs, who is an AI expert, talks about it. Well, the whole episode's about where AI is going, what's it used for, that type of thing. And he's a believer in that the way it's used at the minute is just giving adequacy, and people are then passing that off as genius. And he's like, it's not. But he's a fan, but he said you've got to use it right. So maybe I'll send you a link.
Thank you very much.
And Charmaine,
Yes.
What marketing are you doing to help push Plug-in Move out into the market?
So I am a tech novice. I don't use social media. I use social media, but mostly just to watch other people do their gardens, and some people clean their homes and things like that. But my sister, Chantal, she did brand management at uni, hated the course, and then taught herself how to use Canva. So she's a marketing strategist. Everything you see on any platform, that is her work. And it has been a bit challenging because sometimes, when you're working with people, a creative and somebody who's practical and always so serious, and you're telling her you can't do that, she's like, but it looks amazing. And you're like, yeah, but you can't put that on there. And so there's a little back and forth. But yeah, she did the website, she did Twitter, she did Instagram, Facebook, and to be honest, half the time I don't even know what our page looks like on Facebook because I'm never on it, which is really, really bad as a business owner to say something like that. But I've been trying to get into it, and I prefer LinkedIn. I hated it like literally 2 years ago. And I don't know how it happened, but I accidentally managed to sign myself up to the paid version of LinkedIn for 2 years, and I had no idea. And they're like, oh, thank you for your payment. And do you want to try this since you pay for the service? And I'm like, why am I paying for the service? And literally the only company that was on there was a company that I'd been working in when I was in Scotland. And it was about 15 years old, and everybody who was coming through going, oh yeah, so you've been with this company 15 years. I'm like, no,
you must be LinkedIn's best customer. You signed up to give them money every month and then did nothing with it.
I did nothing with it. I didn't use it at all, but now it's
Do you want to be a customer of Eximo Marketing? I'd love customers
Not
like
at all.
that. If anybody wants to just give me some money and I'll do nothing in return for it, that sounds like a great
so she's
business
the one
model.
who does most of that. I mean, interestingly enough, when I write a post, I wrote a post not too long ago, and I gave it to my husband to read. And I was like, oh, I'm going to post this because it's been such an exciting week, and it's been so inspiring. And it's like, yeah, you can put that on there. I'm like, why not? It's like, it's too preppy, it's too excited, and people in Northern Ireland won't appreciate it the way they won't appreciate it in the way you're trying to deliver it, because we're very conservative here, and anybody who goes, and my husband's Irish, by the way, so he basically said, well, tone it down, because, we're not an excitable people. So if you say that, it's going to be seen as you're bragging. And I'm like, no, but I really was inspired, and it was really exciting. It's like, no, you have to tone it down.
I mean, I'm clearly not a marriage guidance counsellor, but your husband's also wrong, right? He's just.
I will let him know.
Just tell me. Wait, what's his name?
Martin.
You're wrong.
There you go.
Is he a big lad?
6'4".
Oh shit. Anyway, I actually think you're quite right, Martin. Keep going. There's a guy in the audience here who's looking for a LinkedIn consultant. No, but I do think, David. Sorry, go on. I think you were going to say something.
I was just going to something with LinkedIn that I've and I don't want to try and pass this off as a tip, especially with LinkedIn gurus in the room. But what is working for me is, I need to think of a snazzy name for it. I haven't got one, but writing. Hopefully entertaining content that is sort of the way that I would write if I was writing for a magazine or a blog or something, but then just having this one bit in there which is the plug or the thing that I'm trying to. So that's what's working for me. So like the example you gave of the Maxwell Garage thing that did all right on there. People seemed to quite like it, and I wrote it as this love letter to Maxwell Garage. But just the one line that the reason I mainly did it was to let agencies in Hollywood know that I am now freelance and available and write stuff, and it worked. And within, by the next day after I posted this thing, and I tagged in, it was one was called Smarts and one was called Ardmore, and about sort of 10 to 15 people from those agencies had added me, and then I went in and did a talk at one, and now I'm freelancing at one, and it's kind of, and I've done that a few times now, it's kind of almost, just subtly inserting the sales bit into a load of entertainment. Yeah. That needs a better phrase, but I'm getting nods from the LinkedIn experts, so that apparently is something that works. Yeah.
But I think the other thing as well is that LinkedIn, as I understand it, is getting busier as a platform. As people are migrating from Twitter over there, maybe more frequently posting different types of posts, there's a whole sea of content out there that is easy to drown in, of people being delighted that they've done something, or that type of thing. So writing something in your way and in your tone of voice is the only way I know you can stand out, isn't it? Just be you. Everyone else is taken. So tell Martin you're wrong.
Yeah, you say that now.
He's not here, so I can keep telling him he's wrong. So you're sort of getting into using a bit more social media. And do you talk to the shopping centres and people? Is that who you're sort of targeting with your social media work, or is it the people who go to those shopping centres to tell them that you've got product there?
So to be honest, we weren't planning on getting into shopping centres at all. The product was to specifically targeting tourism and tourists. We went to a few organizations looking for assistance, and they basically said, we can't help you. It's not something we do. But when you speak to somebody and go, as a tourist, how often do you take pictures or call your family, use your phone for everything? How many times do you go, my battery's almost dead, and there's no way for you to actually, charge it? So
the number of times I've walked out of pubs or coffee shops in foreign countries with my phone behind the counter, and you get out and you go,
yeah, exactly.
Can I, yeah, all the time.
So we thought, this is going to be exciting. Let's do that. And then so when they said no, it was quite a blow, because you're thinking, well, so what are we going to do? We had no idea. So I happened to be reading something online, and I noticed that you can do commercialization. So I went to my business partner, who is my husband, and my sister, and was like, shopping centers, and they're like, yeah, but that's not what we're doing. What if we water down the product, and what if it becomes something that we are not planning it to be, and how are people going to perceive it? And I'm like, to be honest, I think it's just put it out in the market, and then hopefully the more people see it, the more people will use it, the more people will understand its value to their lives.
There is something to be said about what you'd call emergent strategy, and the number of times you sit down and you say, our plan is to target these people, tourists, and we will find them this way. And you go, perfect.
Yeah.
And then the companies you want to work on, no, you can't do that. You've either got to kill the business, or you've got to look at what's emerging in front of you and find a new way to go. And small businesses are brilliant at that. Bigger businesses are terrible at it, because the structures and the processes don't allow them to sort of move and adapt.
Thankfully, we didn't have a lot of red tape, so it was like,
exactly.
at the dining room table. So what are we going to do? Shopping centers. Oh, okay, cool.
Perfect.
So let's try that. And thankfully it's working.
Excellent. And David? Do you, no?
Yes, my name is David, yes.
Yes, it is. I thought you were going to add something in on the back of that.
No.
That's all right.
I was just listening and enjoying it.
Oh, that's okay. Well, I'm going to take you back to your childhood now. Let's go back to your childhood. So you grew up in West Yorkshire, in Leeds, which is a place, and I grew up in Bradford, which, for those of you, English geography isn't great. They're right next to each other. Slight rivalry. I would say Bradford's a better city, but the reality is Leeds is the bigger...
It's a rivalry in the same way as you could compare, I don't know, like David Beckham to a bowl of porridge.
Yeah.
You can't compare Leeds and Bradford.
Exactly, and Leeds being the bowl of porridge.
Sure,
something like that. So there's certainly a local rivalry, but very many similarities in terms of what life would have been like growing up there. So, your parents, your mates' parents, thinking you're Mexican, and what was sort of mixed race life like in the sort of late 80s, 90s for you?
Yeah, it was interesting. I guess when you're that age, you don't really have a concept of what being mixed race is. Sort of other than seeing that you got your parents are different colours. For me, I would contextualise all of it around hair. So like growing up, like most of my friends had one type of hair. Or I went to sort of quite a mixed school, so I had white friends and I had black friends, but I was sort of in the middle of the two. So I mean, you can't really tell now, but my hair grows out. It goes sort of like bit like an afro, but more Bob Dylan than Bob Marley. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it was a bit confusing. So yeah, I know. I remember getting my hair when I turned 13. My mum took me to Vidal Sassoon. It was a big thing. They I was very but it was a big exciting moment to get my hair straightened.
I was going to ask about, because I remember being a similar age, and all the cool kids had blonde curtains when I was growing up. And thinking, how do I make my hair do that, was something that young Jarvis went through.
I hope you didn't do it, because I did do it. I'd been looking forward to this thing all year. She took, my mum took me there. It's probably quite expensive haircut. They straightened my hair. It takes about an hour, and I looked up and then burst into tears because I looked terrible. But I suppose the point is, the sort of more serious point is, I spent a lot of time trying to look like these people, and then these people are not quite fitting in. It was confusing.
My favourite hair story, I'll just very briefly and then come back and ask you a similar question to what I've asked David, but Demolition Man, Wesley Snipes,
yes.
Probably 94, 95 maybe, he had blonde hair. I decided I'm going to have blonde hair. Obviously, I'm not going to pay to go to the hairdressers to do it. My mate Katie Simpson will do it for me. So we did it round at Katie's house, without enough dye. Or bleach or whatever it is that you do. So it ended up going like different shades of blonde. I looked a bit like a cheetah. So we decided the only way to save it was to shave all my hair off. And so we sort of took it down to a number 2. First time I'd ever shaved my hair, didn't work. Took it down to a number 1, took it down to a 0 where you could just about see what was left. So I went into school the next day and shaved heads were banned in our school. So this is the mid-90s. There was a lot of... The skinheads were still sort of banned. So there was just a blanket ban on having a shaved head. And I turned up at school and was sent from the classroom straight to the deputy head's office and sat down there. And the deputy head was fuming. And then she was like, we're going to have to suspend you. I was like, oh, temporarily exclude you. I was like... So then my mum got brought in, and I wasn't happy about this. And I'd probably spent the 3 hours waiting for my mum to turn up because she had to get 2 buses back from work. Just basically kicking off about being suspended. So there's been a bit of a back and forth between me and the teacher, by which point I think she's a little bit annoyed. So my mum comes in and sits down. She was like, what's going on? Barking at me. I was like, and my mum is 5'2" and an absolute terrier. And you always knew if you were wrong, you were going to get it. But if the teacher was wrong, she was going to give it to them. There was no, it was just black or white for my mum. And the teacher was really annoyed at this point, and she was like, and he can't have a shaved head like that in school. He looks like a neo-Nazi. At which point my mum just turned to me and went, Andrew, just go and wait outside. I just went, yep, see you. And all you could hear from through the school door was just my mum ripping into this teacher.
Wow.
It felt like it lasted an hour. It probably didn't, but the teacher didn't say much back. At which point my mum came out, dragged me home, and she was like, you've got 2 weeks off school. And I was like, off school? Suspended. But because the teacher had just made an absolute mess of this, I didn't get it in the neck from my mother. So that was my attempt at blonde hair, my only attempt at blonde hair.
Wow. Well, it's a good look on you now.
Thank you very much.
I think with like mixed, I don't know if you find
if you could just go to the high shot, Alan, and so make everyone can see the... thank you.
I find with a mixed race thing is, when you have to fill out these forms and say what you are, and I'm always other, but life, particularly growing up, it feels like that. So sometimes you'd be in a room where, and actually it still happened even in professional life. I've been in rooms where I have been the blackest person in the room, and it's confusing that way. But then when I visit got family in the Caribbean, quite often they're in a sort of one of the small islands called Nevis. I will often be in some, the whitest person they've ever seen in the whole, and it always just sort of not quite fitting in can be confusing. And I think it's sort of learning to navigate that. But yeah, it's definitely, and like I say, always being the one. I don't think it's like 1 in 100 times of going to an airport that I would not be randomly searched. I think it's just because
the airport selection is wild, isn't it? I need to check the definition of random because it's not when it comes to airports. And as I said to you when we were prepping for this, I'm as white as I am black. I have a white mum and a black dad, but it's interesting society's view on that because no one's ever called me White Andy. So, you only ever seen in one way, and sort of as you start to work that out as you're a kid, because it's just life, isn't it? And your mates don't see that, but as you get older, people start to point things out to you or chase you home from school, as used to happen in Bradford at some point.
Yeah, I think my experience is probably different because I'm lighter skinned, and I think sometimes I would confuse people. So I'm the other way around. So my mum's black, my dad's white, and sometimes, my mum would come pick me up from somewhere, and people wouldn't quite understand who's that black woman picking up. That's my mum. And it's. Yeah, no, it is tricky, I think. But generally, I tend to get more either like my mate's mum who thinks I'm Mexican or Middle Eastern is where people normally tend to,
I've also got 2 half-brothers who are twins and are both white. And the number of times you'd be sat in a pub and say, oh, so who's your mate? And that's my brother. I go, yeah, good one. And you're like, no, it's actually my brother. No, genuinely is. Oh. So that used to happen a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, Charmaine, enough about Bradford and Leeds. So you said you're a second generation
I am, yes. So my mom came here in the 70s and then went back home and then came back again and then brought us. So, second generation.
Gotcha. And did she go back, I'm just trying to sort of think of it compared to the Windrush migration, which is what my family came. Did she sort of come to work for a little bit and then come back to get you to come back? Or did she just I've had enough of that place, I'm going home, and then decide, maybe it wasn't that bad, and I'm going back?
No, so she came over because My mom is a nurse and very opinionated, 4'9" woman.
There is something about the smaller the mum, the stronger the opinion, isn't there?
Exactly. And she went to boarding school, was basically raised by nuns who were exceptionally strict. But then because she has that stubborn streak in her, she said the wrong thing to the wrong person and she couldn't get a job. So for a long, long time, she kept applying for jobs in Zimbabwe and she couldn't get anything. And then one of the priests at the school she had been to basically said, well, I think you should go to the UK. She was 17, 18 at the time. So coming from a family of 14, being the eldest daughter, and the only one who actually went to school, is she got on a plane by herself, landed in Heathrow, and had an address, and she had no idea where she was going to go after that. So yeah, the resilience and the ability to forge through comes specifically from my mom. But when I then had children, it was quite an interesting dynamic. So when you say you're not the whitest, or you're the whitest person in the room at the time, or you're the darkest person, so they're starting going to school, and they come home and they're like, yeah, so we start to, I don't know how the conversation started. I think they were saying that, oh, the children at the school were going, well, you have a better tan than so-and-so, and I'm like, it's not a tan, that's your skin tone. And I'm like, so what do you think mommy is? And they go, so mommy is brown? And then I was like, so what are you? It's like, well, we're white. And then I was like, so what is daddy? And they're like, daddy's white. And I'm like, because my husband doesn't tan and he's very, very light. So, so
classic,
it was
classic Irish tan.
Yeah, classic Irish tan, freckles and all that. So it's like that's the first time I sort of learned about the inability to blend in as a mixed person. So now when I get forms from school, like for the flu jab, tick a form, I'm like, they're not on the form because they're not just mixed, but they're also not black and they're also not white. So it's like, are they mixed African? Are they mixed British? Are they, it's gets quite confusing. So it's trying to navigate and teach them how that, to teach them how to identify themselves and to get an identity, because it can be quite daunting to not belong to either side.
Yeah, for sure. And I think maybe compared to, like, if you look at role models, I think as a kid, there were lots of white role models and superheroes, and maybe sort of coming a bit later, but there are also some black role models, but there weren't many. I sort of found then a writer called Hanif Kuriashi, but generally there weren't that many mixed race role models, which in itself is But I think one thing, maybe for your kids, one thing I've found is, like, as you get older, it feels creatively, I think it's to be able to tap into more than one type of person is a cool thing.
It's an advantage.
And I think you're right. And I spent my early years, similar to you, sort of looking for belonging and trying to fit into groups, and only sort of realising as you get older that actually, yes, being able to navigate that, but also being able to stand out is probably the way to go, and it's actually really powerful.
Difference because being raised African, we were told never to stand out.
Yeah.
Just
and
make
as a
yourself
teenager,
small,
standing out is, when you're a younger child and a teen, the last thing you want to do, you want to be in the cool group, and all the cool group, they all look like clones. They just all hair's same, jacket's the same, shoes are the same.
Yeah.
You don't want to stand out.
No.
Because it's weird.
I think there is a sort of a history attached to not standing out, because I had been watching something during, the Black Lives Matter riots in 2021 too. And somebody was talking about how, but then this is more, weirdly, they were American, but they were talking about how parents of black children tend to downplay their children's abilities. So even if your child is like a straight A student and someone's like, oh my God, you must be so proud, they would turn around and go, of course not. I mean, he's silly, he doesn't know how to do A, B, C, D, and he's funny that way, he's nothing special. So they'll downplay you in front of other people. And apparently the reason for that was because if you did turn on and boasted about your child was then, during slavery, would then be taken away from you. So it was a way of trying to protect your child by going, they're not anything special,
Right.
So then it's interesting that was in America, but it's actually the same at home in Zimbabwe, but then probably because we were colonized until 1980 where we got our independence. So that train of thought was pretty much ingrained in. So it was like, don't try and stand out. Be good. Don't be too good. And
That is fascinating.
yeah.
Let's reclaim that narrative, by the way. My daughter Kira is fantastic. Unbelievable. Brilliant. Great at netball, smart kid, almost as good looking as her dad. She's fantastic.
Almost.
But that generational thing, though, is really interesting. One area where I do agree with your really big, tough boyfriend that's going to knock Andy out is husband. Sorry, I didn't mean to I'm in more trouble. I've downgraded him.
A husband's not here. A boyfriend's at the back, but a husband's not here. Sorry.
One thing I find from my experience of Irish people over here is that I think there is a similarity in terms of people. The bragging thing is I think is not as common. So compared to London, I suppose, where I spent most of my life, and like LinkedIn, I suppose, is what we were talking about before. It's just much more normal for everyone to be like, "This is me. I'm the best. Like, these are the reasons why you need to hire me. I'm brilliant at all this." And I find that here, at all levels, from people who are junior to the most senior, it is a bit more frowned upon to be like, "Oh, I'm great." It's sort of like, "Oh yeah, well, I've sort of done that." But it's sort of like you kind of, and I wonder how much of that is or similar in that generational sort of thing.
I once heard two guys in a pub discussing Rory McIlroy, who'd just gone back to world number one. So he was literally the best golfer in the world, and he'd done a TV interview where he said, I've put a lot of hard work in, and I've got back to the top of the rankings, and it's paying off. And one guy said he's lost the run of himself, bragging about it like that. I was like, he's literally like, there is no competition about this. He's the best person in the world at the thing that he does. He's allowed to say, I've done, and I've put the work in, and I've got back to that position. And to this guy, it was the biggest crime. Lost the run of himself.
Catch yourself.
Well, I sat there, I was like,
That's the one.
dear me. Well, look, the time has flown by, so I'm going to pull up stumps, to use a cricket metaphor at the moment, but I'm going to finish with one question for you. If you could recommend a resource, a book, a podcast, a social media account, other than your own, that people should dive into, what would you recommend to people listening?
Yeah, other than my own LinkedIn page that you could add and follow. No,
Link in the show notes?
No, that's the other thing. I haven't got anything to plug, really. To be honest, I should have thought of something better than this, but the first thing that's come to mind is I am obsessed with snooker. I don't know if there's any other snooker fans. Tough crowd, but I won. And my favourite player...
It's a Dutchman.
All right, okay. Well,
snooker and darts, big
good.
fan.
We should go and have a pint after. But my favourite player is Ronnie O'Sullivan, and his autobiography that I think is just called Ronnie. He didn't spend too long coming up with a title for it, but it's all about, it's not about business necessarily, but I learned a lot from it in terms of imposter syndrome, but also this whole thing of getting out of your own way, which I think is a phrase that people talk about now. He is the classic example. He is, if you in the sport, he's known as the greatest genius ever. He's incredible, but a lot of the time he wasn't winning because he was just in his own head, and it's a lot about self-sabotage and
So Ronnie did some work, I'll put the link to this in the show notes as well, with a guy called Professor Steve Peters, who wrote The Chimp Paradox, which is a brilliant book about getting out of your own head, effectively. Yeah. He worked with Sir Chris Hoy and various other people and helped them go from being good at what they did to being the best in the world by sort of getting around to that. So we'll put that in the show notes as well. Thank you. And Charmaine?
I bought it years and years ago, and it stuck with me. It's called Surrounded by Idiots by Comic Erickson.
Pertinent.
Well, the thing is, it's more about personalities. And the reason I bought it because the title was interesting. But then when you actually get into the book, it talks about how to deal with different personalities. So you have your reds, your greens, your yellows, your blues, the empaths, the leaders, the clowns. So I think it's a good book. For me, it was really good because I needed to learn how to navigate the corporate world. I still refer to it quite a lot because I personally feel like I constantly have to wear a mask. My mask is always constantly on when I'm in public. When I'm at home and people see me at home, they're like, "You're so different." I'm like, "Yeah, there's the home me, and then there's the work me, and then there's the public me." So I've got like 15 million
Go on.
personalities.
What are the secrets your kids see that you don't show everybody? You can tell us in this room and the tens of thousands of people listening. Promise we won't share that.
The things that you don't. Well, my sister says because I'm very unserious and I don't try to take myself very seriously. I like to do cartwheels and all sorts of random stuff. So
We need to go back to the wide shot,
with
Alan.
my kids and all that. So so when you see me and I'm all dead serious, it's because I'm trying to I'm trying to make you think that I'm a serious person, to make you think that I'm actually, I know what I'm talking about. Even
This
half
sounds
the time.
exhausting,
No,
though.
it is.
Yeah.
It is. But then, so this book basically taught me how to pinpoint what a personality type is for a specific person and then communicate with them that way. So I would definitely recommend that book. It's
Excellent.
quite good.
Surrounded by Idiots, Chimp Paradox, Ronnie.
Yes.
Wonderful. There you go. What a trilogy of books they are. So thank you very much for coming along to the podcast recording. Thank you for listening, watching at home. Can you put your hands together for David and Charmaine? Thank you very much. It's great doing it live. The energy's wonderful, having an audience here, but you can't have a podcast these days without asking people to leave you a 5-star rating and review it. And if you loved it, go and send it to a friend. If you didn't like it, send me a message and tell me why. I know it's the guests. It's usually their fault. And tune in next week. We've got episode 3 of the Black History Month miniseries coming out next Tuesday. See you later. Thank you.